Welcome everybody, staff and commissioners to our Planning Commission meeting on May 1st, 2024. My name is Commissioner Hanson, current chair of the Planning Commission. We are going to start our agenda this evening for the Planning Commission meeting with an invocation offered by Commissioner Anderson, followed by a leading of the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and do that myself. Commissioner Anderson.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet here as citizens of Washington City. We're grateful for the right to operate our own government, to voice our concerns and to have them heard. Please help us to be calm in temperament. Please help us to be mindful and open-minded and have the Spirit with us. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would you all please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight we're missing two of our planning commissioners, but because we have a quorum, which constitutes, I think, 3 people, we're able to go ahead and have this meeting this evening. I'd like to welcome our city attorney, Seg Miller. Staff, thank you for your work, and there are some council people here in the audience as well. We'll go ahead and, commissioners, look at an approval for the agenda this evening as set and as outlined. I'll look for a motion when you're ready.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I move to approve the agenda for the May 1st, 2024 agenda.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I second.
Got a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, I'll look for an approval of the minutes from our previous meeting, April 3rd, 2024. You've received that in your packet. If you have any updates or questions, please indicate at this time. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion on that item as well.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I move to approve the Planning Commission minute meetings from April 3rd, 2024.
Commissioner, if I may at this point, the chairman is correct that city code allows the commission to meet with a quorum of 3 commissioners. City code does require a vote of at least 3 commissioners in favor of anything to pass. So on your motion, we just need a vote of all 3 or it won't pass tonight. I didn't count the chairman. Why did I look past you, Chairman?
It's okay. I'm used to it. What was your name again down there? Thad, you're the man. I do have a first on approval of the minutes for April 3rd.
I'll second your motion.
All right, I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? No? Okay. At this time, we'll look for the declaring of any reason for an abstention or a conflict for the commissioners. For those here that are new to a meeting like this evening, this is an opportunity for each of us to declare if we have a financial interest in any of the items that are on the agenda this evening. I do not have any financial interest. Anybody here?
No.
Okay. Out of curiosity, how many people are attending their first Planning Commission meeting this evening? Oh, usually we get people like this when they're really happy about something, so I'm excited to hear what everybody's happy about. We'll see. It should be a good learning experience for everybody. There's going to be people here that leave happy. There's going to be people here that leave upset. One of the things as I read through the public comments and I prepared for this meeting over the weekend and the beginning of the week, spoke to some of the other commissioners about some things. One of the things to recognize, there was a misprint I saw somewhere that the Planning Commission is not City Council. This body here, we are appointed by the mayor and the City Council to serve a term, I think it's 3 years. I don't know, 3 years? I think I've been here almost 6 years now. So why nobody can remember me, I guess. I haven't been around long enough. But we're a recommending body. And so what we do is we make sure that applications that come to us for different things in the city, we make sure that it follows the city code and it follows state law. And we rely heavily on our city attorney to help us on the law, and we rely heavily on the staff to help us with the city code. And what we do with our decisions is we recommend or deny, we recommend for approval or recommend for denial to city council different applications that come to us. In my time here, I've been involved in recommending things to city council who then denies it. And I've been involved with things that we've denied and city council approves it. So it goes both ways. Typically when a lot of people show up tonight or on an evening like tonight when there's something that's sensitive in their neighborhood, just understand that we are a recommending body. We are not the final say in this. We are going to follow the rules and things that we know to happen to a planning commission, which tonight might be the first time you're ever seeing it or hearing about it. A lot of work went into this for a lot of people to get to this point. So you may or may not like the things that you hear, but we're going to work through it and we're going to try to get your questions answered. And we're going to give people an opportunity to speak if they would like to do so. So with that being said, I'm going to start the first item on our agenda this evening is a zone change. This is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for a zone change Z-24-03 from AP to C1 located at 750 Merrill Road. The applicant is Rosenberg and Associates, and I'll turn the time over to Eldon for the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. The C1 request is for the purpose of allowing C1 uses in addition to the current administrative professional uses on this property. This particular location has a general plan land use designation of neighborhood commercial, which supports the administrative, professional, and community commercial zoning districts. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is residential estate to the north, civic to the east, and St. George City boundary to the south and west. Staff is concerned with losing Class A office space, but also sees the benefit of providing quality neighborhood commercial space as well. Staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of Z-24-03 for the zone change request from administrative professional to a proposed neighborhood commercial zoning designation, and that's on to the City Council based on the following findings as stated in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll turn the time over to you for initial questions.
What's the purpose? I mean, the 3-story office building probably got its CO today. Why are we changing now from administrative professional? What's the point in it?
So the building is nearing completion. This will allow them to provide C1 uses in addition to those office uses that come with the administrative professional.
What would the uses they would want? I mean, they're obviously going to put them in that building, correct? Because you can't put anything else on that besides you have the food trucks and then the 3-story office building. What else? I mean, so what uses would could they do in that building? So I'm saying they're not adding another building. They can't get anything else on that parcel.
I'm happy to pull open the C1 code and go through those with you if you'd like.
Yeah, the applicant did want to speak to it too. Would you want him to come up now and answer some of those questions?
That's just my first question.
Yeah, if you want to come on up, please do so. Yeah, initially, I thought they were going to build a bank right there where the food trucks are at some point in the future, but whatever.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg MacArthur. I'm one of the owners of this property, so I can answer that question for you. So we have a $10 million office building that's already built, getting CEO, so clearly we don't want to change the AP, but we do have a user that we actually really like for the office building that falls a little bit outside of just general. After we thought it was a use that could go into AP, but after speaking with the city, it's a little bit outside of code. The user is an events center. So it'd be on the first floor. And that first floor has a couple of external entrances. And so it's events basically, possibly weddings, like meeting events, things like that that would go into the office building. And that's the reason why we need to change the zone, is to make it so that we can fit within the zoning for that user. So the office building will still stay. The majority of our uses in that office building is mostly leased up. They all fall within the AP, but this one falls outside of it.
And that, Greg, that wasn't something that was known at the time when you first came with this, is that right? That tenant wasn't?
Oh, that's
in the
correct. We
radar?
built the office building, and then, once we got closer to done completion, now we're filling it up with tenants.
Yeah.
And we found a tenant that we really liked, so that's the reason why we're moving forward with this.
Well, that's the intent of it. Drew, out of curiosity, is there any concern at all that if that one falls through, but then we've opened this to a wider scale of zoning, is that something that the city's concerned about?
Most likely not, just because of the building itself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a Les Schwab come in there and try to take the bottom floor. I'm being a little sarcastic, but not much, right? Because that's the things you worry about. Let's go to the far end of the other spectrum. What they're really asking for is there's a bit of a retail component to this particular client that wants to go on lease. That's the thing we'd look through, and they're in AP. It's all professional office space, basically. It's not a retail component, so that's what this is about. But there is that fear. But I also look at the building. There's a lot of the ones that you may look at that are permitted in the C1 that aren't even going to approach this because it won't meet their needs. The building itself won't meet their needs. That'll help confine, I think, 70-80% maybe of the worries, is because I'm not going to have some of those. A nursery's not going to come in because they can't do anything outside. I'm just throwing you out things that could come in into C1 that are not going to come to this building just because of what it's already, what the upstairs will be used for, everything around it. So we'll eliminate a lot of the worries that you may have, and because the building is here, right? If there was no building or another building to come, yes, but they have nowhere to put another building on here because you're pretty at the far end of your parking, all those other things that there would not be a place for it to come.
Well, speaking of the parking, will changing it, will it meet the parking code?
Well, we've talked it over, and because of the hours they'll go, it'll be opposite of a lot of the daytime things. The special events that they might put on will be more evenings and weekends, where their office people are going to be the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 and gone. So we've kind of looked into that as well. We feel okay with it, as staff, because of the things they'll do are going to be kind of after, 5 o'clock, weekends, et cetera. So.
And just to add to that, we are overparked for the building as well, significantly.
No, yeah, that's the question I was wondering, is what the parking was like with it. If it was, I know there's a lot of parking there, so.
Yeah, and we have a Class A building that, you've seen it, I think, if you've driven by it or if you've been in it. It's a Class A building, and the tenants that we're going after, the lease rates that we're asking for, we would not introduce something that would make it so this is a less desirable building. So we've taken that into consideration.
Are there still plans to build a bank where the food trucks currently reside, or is that something that is kind of off the table now?
As we currently sit, as you've seen, it's currently acting as a food truck park, and that has been highly successful. We have a long waiting list actually for it right now. So as of right now, we have no intent to change that. We're just putting up some shade structures for it right now, so we're putting some extra investment into it. It's working really well, so we don't have any intent to change right now.
I pass it like almost every day, and we comment regularly about the success of the food trucks, and I was like, man, I hope there's not another bank there, because that'd be 3 out of 4 corners now we have a bank, and it's just like, man. Okay, that was just my concern, is that it wasn't gonna, I know that the footprint is there, so what's changing inside of that footprint is what it is. And do we get to see that again, what actually comes there? Or is it, we have to trust that it's going to be not loud at night, all the other stuff that may come
You
with
won't
it?
see anything because it's a use. It'd be a permitted use. It is, again, if you were looking at aesthetics, that's what, or parking, all those things have met those boxes. We've checked them, we've crossed the T's,
We want to
dotted
see
the
a conditional
I's.
use permit for anything in there.
What I'm saying, like, what if a
A
nightclub?
particular one, but all the things that you may look at a particular one will already be here. So I'm not going to say not, definitely you may not, because there may come a use that they'll have that may still fit in the building and do all that, but it says it's a CUP, then it would have to come to you. But again, 90% of what we'd look at is going to already be in place.
So Drew, are you saying that the proposed change The proposed use in C1 is permitted or conditional?
On this particular one, it will be a conditional use permit
That's what I
Okay.
thought, yeah.
for that one event, yes.
All right, well, that's
Because of that particular, again, that just proves what I was talking about. If it says it's a CUP, they'll still have to come back. So I think, yeah, this particular client would be back if this goes
Okay.
through at a conditional use.
Because there was a lot of residents that showed up the first time we brought this, and like, honestly, I don't think there's a nightclub. Some crazy thing happened, all of a sudden there's a bunch of noise and all these things that the neighbors don't want. I just wanted to make sure we were able to see that again to try to mitigate any concerns that the neighborhood might have, because I would expect they come back if it's a
Yeah,
problem.
not every time, but in this case, it would.
Yeah, okay.
And we wouldn't want to do that to our tenants either, because now
Yeah.
we're dealing with, 10,000 square foot tenants. We have medical users in there, we have a school coming in there, so we wouldn't do things to upset
Yeah.
our tenants either.
Yeah,
So Commissioner Bullock, you asked about what the uses were in C1. I'm just going to list them for you, just to maybe follow up on that question for you and for everybody else. The C1 permitted uses, these are in addition to what's allowed in administrative professional. The list is fairly short. It's a mobile food vendor, which is already contemplated and approved there, right? Restaurants, retail operation of cleaning, laundry, cosmetic and repair services, and retail sale and rental of goods, merchandise, and equipment conducted wholly within an enclosed building. Those are the only new permitted uses. Everything else is conditional in C1. And so those categories, there's quite a lot that fits into those categories, but I just wanted to maybe help you have comfort as to what's permitted in C1 that's in addition to administrative professional and not conditional.
Greg, thanks. If you don't mind sticking around, just in case after public comment, if we have some other questions, if you could
Yeah, absolutely.
stay somewhat close. You can still go to the back if you want, but I might call you back. I might call you back up here. Thanks. All right, this is actually, Commissioners, do you have any additional questions that you might want to ask before we open this up for the public comment? All right, this is a public hearing, which allows for the public to stand and voice their opinion. The reason, this is something to take note for everybody, even if you're not here for this item, the item that you are here for. The public hearing, what it's designed for is it allows you to stand and give your 2 cents, I guess, for lack of a better term, on what you think of the project, what your questions are that you might want to get answered, and we can try to help with that if we know them. We can get the applicants to help answer questions. We limit people to 3 minutes. It is not a time for you to stand and start a debate with the Planning Commission. It's not a time to stand and be over the top argumentative or get into a position where I'm going to have to ask you to leave or sit down. One of the two. I have a pretty long leash that I'll give people. I want you to have your opportunity to stand and speak. It puts it on the record for the minutes for the City Council. City Council watches these meetings. They're public and they're on YouTube. They also receive minutes from the meetings, and some of them are here this evening. So we want you to get your thoughts and concerns about projects on the record, and we'll try to do the best we can to help with that. If you respect us, we'll respect you. I've had breakdowns in the past, and the next morning I wake up and I feel terrible, so it's never fun for anybody. So I'll do the best I can to help those of you that have concerns, and we'll go from there. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this particular item? Is there anybody online that was wanted to say something, or is there something, Melody, that I was missing? It sounded like somebody might have been online.
No, it was just someone on the staff that was joining online.
Okay. It does not look like any takers. There was nothing submitted online for this particular item. Even though I think there was one, I think it was out of order. Is that right, Melody, that should have gone to the other item in our packet?
The comments were already fixed this morning, so everything goes to that.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and Commissioners, I'll open the floor back to you for additional questions to staff. And if we don't have any additional questions or comments, I'll look for a motion.
I'm going to, this is Commissioner Mitchell, I'll make a comment. Just a thought that I've had. The C1, I guess, opens maybe a little bit different operating hours in my mind. So you got the professionals that would be gone at 5, so it'd be pretty quiet from that point on, where commercial maybe opens it up a little bit to extended hours of noise. I think where it's located though, there's a pretty good buffer between this building and the residents because of the path that's behind it and the drainage. But that's just one thought that came to my mind, that it does extend the hours of operation. I don't know how the food trucks are there too though already for, I don't think it's a big deal, but just a thought.
Yeah.
That drainage will be piped and filled in the next little bit. It's a project that's on the list of things to be completed in conjunction with the canal company, and so eventually that drainage will be underground.
On the backside or on
Correct.
the north side?
Yeah, there's that north side. It's the north arm of what used to be called the Y drains. There were two drains that kind of came in and intersected right at that point, and so that one still needs to be buried, and both of them eventually will be buried. But yeah, the Washington City's responsibility is the north arm. The south arm will be with St. George and the LDS Church as they finish their development.
And that'll turn into a trail.
A trail. That's why I wanted to bring up on the screen, is that's a master plan trail. Once the pipes get put in the ground and the ditches is closed, then the city will make that part of the master trail system as well, down to that part of town.
And I guess honestly, me personally, I'm not opposed to I feel like what's going on there, and even if they add some additional opportunities for people to go there and purchase food or whatever it might be, I think it's a great location.
I agree. My only thought was, why did we change this from the beginning? Because we had it at certain, when we built it, and now we're changing it, but I understand the reason, and I don't have a problem with it for me. Any other comments, or I'll look for a motion on this item?
I'll go ahead, I'll make a motion. I move that this goes to the city council, correct?
Yes.
A recommendation of approval of Z-24-03. The request to rezone the acreage, 750 West Merle Road, from the current administrative professional AEP zoning to the neighborhood commercial C1 zoning designation, and send it to city council with staff recommendation and the 2 findings.
Commissioner Anderson, I'll second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Mitchell. I've got a second by Commissioner Anderson. Individual voting: Bullock.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. This motion passes, and we will send this to City Council to review with our recommendation for approval. Greg, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
And that'll be next Wednesday, if you don't already know, same time.
We'll turn the time now to item number 5A. This is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for a general plan amendment, G-2403, from low density to neighborhood commercial, located at 2651 South Washington Fields Road. The applicant is Brian and Jenica Burnett and Ascend Land Consultants, and I'll turn the time over to you, Eldon, for the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just want to remind, this is a general plan amendment. The item we just heard was a zone change discussing uses. So again, just general plan, here's what we're discussing. The requested area covers approximately 8.33 acres. The current land use designation is low density. The applicant is seeking approval to have the land use designation changed to neighborhood commercial for the possibility of developing the area into a neighborhood commercial project. The neighborhood commercial designation allows for the administrative professional and C1 zoning designations. The surrounding general plan land use designations are low density to the north, east, and south, and neighborhood commercial to the west, which was recently changed. back in September of last year. Staff has reviewed the requested change and would like to note the low-density residential to the east and south, along with the need to work through access, road width, utility extensions, and access for this property, which we've discussed with the applicant and they're aware. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of G-24-03, amending the general plan land use map from the current low density to the proposed neighborhood commercial designation as outlined in the exhibit, and that's on to City Council. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for comments, questions. Okay.
Just, this is a general plan amendment. So wanting to, I mean, it's not, they'd still have to come back in for a zone change after all this to make it go through. So it's not necessarily, I mean, it'd just be general plan that. It wouldn't be zoned that, it'd just be general planned, correct?
Correct, yeah, current zoning will remain RA2 and RA5 is what it is currently zoned.
So it's residential agricultural, 2 acres and 5 acre right now is what its zoning is. Okay, that'll be helpful, thank you.
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I remember when we discussed the property across the street, there was some thoughts brought up at that point that it was a bigger idea than maybe for just us to discuss. I don't know where that ever went, if it became an item on, well, general plans only take place every so many years, correct? So
Yeah.
it's not like they would have had a chance to look at it, but I just remember that discussion back then. Because I feel like that whole section right there, yeah, eventually the farmland's probably gonna go away. Maybe. You never know when, but it just feels like at some point. Whether it becomes houses or something
Yeah.
else.
We did talk about that. Drew, did that go anywhere with the city or anything you can add to, or Eldon for that matter, that we can add as far as when we were talking about the other side?
Well,
of
we
this?
talked, as, you know, we'd planned on maybe doing a general plan update, but that kind of fell back a little bit right now. There's other things pressing, and that will still happen within the next, you know, we thought about maybe this year or maybe at the end of this year, and it's looking like it might actually be next year that we'll look at doing an update, just with things that have happened, so. But it still could happen maybe later this year, but there's nothing started as of yet. There's too many other things going on right now, so.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson suggested maybe we get the public comment and get their questions and put them down, and we can ask our questions later. Are you guys okay with that, or do you have any questions you want to ask right now? Get out of the way. Okay. So this is the agenda item I believe that most of you are here to speak to or hear about or throw stones at or whatever you want to do. There are some public comments that were submitted online, and one of the things about the public comment section here is if you've submitted it online, it's gone to all the council, it's gone to all the staff, it's gone to us as commissioners, we've had a chance to review it. So if you get up and you just repeat what you wrote, you kind of wasting your time, you're wasting our time. We see it, we've read through it. So I'll let you know, if you feel like you just have to and you're dying and you just can't stand it, you've got to stand up and get your 3 minutes in, okay? I guess that's all right. What happens when there's a big section or a big crowd of people like this, when everybody wants to do that, 3 hours later, we're still sitting here and we just start hating each other. So I don't think you guys want that from us, and we don't want that from you. But if you want to get up, and I'm not going to say no, but I just want you to just keep that in mind. We received a comment from somebody named Kenneth, and just, I won't tell you the last name, doesn't matter. Alan, I believe this is a typo, but I think it's Kathy, might be Katie, it's C-A-T-Y. It's Katie, okay. And then there was one with no name, and it says, they started it, if this is you, this is you. It says, my home borders, subject property, 2651, concerned about the impact of the change would have on the community. If that sounds familiar to you, that was you. Ryan McAllister. John, Kevin, Schmidt. And then, of course, we received two, actually. I think there's almost 100 names on a petition that people have signed expressing their concern. So as the chair, you kind of get to call your shot sometimes. And is Ryan McAllister here? Ryan, did you plan on standing tonight and speaking? Okay. I'd like to ask if you come up first for the public hearing and be the first person, if you don't mind. If you don't want to, that's fine. But the reason I want you to is I can clearly see that you have put in more than your couple of minutes in expressing your opposition to this. So I'd like you to stand up, and I'd like you to show everybody how good you can be at keeping your comments to 3 minutes. Let's see if it works. But you've definitely put in the work, and so I respect that, and I just wanted to see what you have to say.
Right. I'm not going to reiterate those points entirely because I wrote several essays on the matter from different points of view that.
By the way, really quick, I forgot to remind it, or say it, I forgot to tell you. Can you please state your name for the record so we can get it in the minutes to make sure the city council gets it?
Sure, I'm Ryan.
And get real close to the mic.
I'm Ryan McAllister. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to reiterate all those points that I made in the various essays, but I did want to make the notation that there are actually 181 signatures. Some of those came in late, and also the ones that are in the packet. I actually helped Melody put that packet together because I was asking for information. She asked me to do some work to get that information, and the online petition did not have the page that had the numbers in there. In any event, as you know, they're wanting to make a change to this property, and eventually it'll lead to a zoning change, or that's what we anticipate, into a neighborhood commercial. I think it's entirely not appropriate for the area for a number of reasons, but it's the fact that it's surrounded by low-density housing, and that is what it should remain if it is to be developed. For example, I run a biotech company. I sell my products throughout the world. I operate out of a business park in Hurricane. But if I wanted to bring my chemicals home and do that in my backyard, something analogous to Breaking Bad, and try to get a change made in order to do that in my neighborhood, it would be inappropriate. And I think this is very much like that as well, being surrounded by low-density housing, that it'll lead to a decrease in the quality of life. That's the major point. The other issue is that due to its location on a radius, as well as at the bottom of a hill, it's a poor spot to introduce more traffic both entering and leaving that property. The commercial change will lead to other unwanted zoning or businesses, and again, decreasing the quality of life for those that are around it. My house borders this property, as do many of the people that are here today. And some of the council members I know are nearby. Okay. So it'll affect you, whether you believe it or not. And if it gets developed, big deal, but it should be houses, not another convenience store. We don't need a wedding venue as a convenience. People don't look for that, and so it's entirely inappropriate for that to be changed in order to be eventually a wedding venue, and then who knows what else it'll be down the road with different ownership. And I yield my time. Thank you.
Man, Ryan, that's great. I was expecting 35 minutes out of you. I was going to have to cut you off. That's pretty good. There you go. Happy to do whatever you guys want. All three of you live close, like right around there? So there was a house for sale I noticed right next to it. Maybe I should buy that one. The one that's right on the corner by the canal. Ryan, thank you. Who else would like to come up and speak? Please state your name for the record and make sure you speak clearly in the microphone so we can get it on tape. Come on up, please. We'll get you next back there.
Good evening. My name is Rick Facer. I live on Camino Real, directly behind the Burnett's residence. I've known the Burnett's for over 10 years. Nice people. This is not a personal thing. Okay. I stand before you today to express the collective concerns of our community regarding the proposed zoning change that threatens to alter the fabric of our cherished neighborhood. The proposal to establish a wedding venue at 2651 South Washington Fields Road raises numerous apprehensions, chief among them being the detrimental impact on the residents of Lost Ridge Road and surrounding areas. The prospect of increased traffic along Lost Ridge looms ominously over our community. Not only would this influx of vehicles disrupt the peaceful residential atmosphere we hold dear, but it is also pose serious safety hazards for pedestrians and children playing in the vicinity. The narrow one-lane road leading into the Burnett's property is ill-suited to accommodate the heightened traffic volumes that a commercial enterprise like a wedding venue would inevitably bring. And even if the lane was widened to accommodate 2 lanes of travel, the elevated nature of the road will still result in the loss of privacy for the adjacent homes. Furthermore, the prospect of dust and disruption from venue activities encroaching upon residents' backyards on the north side of the Lost Ridge Road is deeply troubling. Our homes are our sanctuaries, places of refuge from the hustle and bustle of the outside world. Introducing commercial activities that generate noise, dust, light pollution, and other disturbances would shatter the tranquility of our living spaces, undermining the very essence of what it means to call this neighborhood home. Equally concerning is the potential spillover effect of these disruptions into adjacent neighborhoods. As residents of this community, we have a shared responsibility to safeguard the well-being of all who call this area home. Allowing unchecked development to encroach upon residential enclaves would set a dangerous precedent, eroding the sense of community and cohesion that binds us together. Moreover, we adamantly oppose any future rezoning of the adjacent pasture area to the north. This pastoral landscape is not merely a piece of land to be bought and sold. It is an integral part of our neighborhood's character and identity. Preserving its rural charm and natural beauty is essential to maintaining the unique allure that drew us to this area in the first place. We acknowledge that this field is currently zoned for low-density housing and feel that this use is consistent with our neighborhood's character and should be left to be developed organically as the current owners of the property see fit. In conclusion, I implore the Planning Commission to heed the voices of our community and to reject the proposed zoning change. Let us not sacrifice the well-being and character of our neighborhood on the altar of commercial interests. Instead, let us work together to preserve and protect the sanctity of our residential enclave for generations to come. I've lived here in this area for 18 years. And as I was out canvassing the neighborhood for the signatures on the petition, I would occasionally stop. And this was on a Saturday and a Sunday that I did this. And it was such a peaceful environment, very quiet. There weren't even dogs barking. No, there really weren't children out screaming and things. It was very peaceful. And I just do not want to see that change in this entire neighborhood, and in particular in my backyard, because my home does back up to the Burnett's house. And it's a beautiful home. They've done a great job on remodeling it. I understand they're putting a pool in the back, but I'm very concerned about parking concerns on this lot. I can't see where there would be enough parking for 50 cars, because they were talking about weddings of 100 people. That would mean somewhere around 50 cars. Where are they going to put them? There's certainly no room for them to park along the side of Washington Fields Road or in our neighborhoods. So parking concerns alone are huge to me. And even though my home is not in a position where cars are going to be driving by it, I'm concerned about my neighbors on Lost Ridge Road. I have been back there in the backyards of people's homes when Jan Harmon used to live there, and their cars would go up, it's an elevated road, and you literally look down into the backyards of these people. And for one family, that's okay with a little bit of traffic, but you started adding a wedding every Friday and Saturday night, and there's gonna be a lot of privacy lost.
Thanks, Rick, appreciate it.
Okay?
Texas Ranger, let's do this. Again, state your name for the record, and please speak into the mic.
My name is McKay Jolly. I appreciate the time. It's good to see. And I just wanted to kind of take a different perspective on what's taking place there. But so I would definitely urge you to consider the long-term applications. You know, we've definitely heard of what's taking place and things that are happening there. I think that I grew up in the fields. I grew up long before any of the homes were out there. But I just want to go in and just the long-term implications of your decisions regarding the Burnett's proposed venue in our community. Allowing them to proceed not only fosters local entrepreneurship, but also sets a precedent for attracting environmentally friendly businesses in Utah. It's crucial to acknowledge that without diverse and thriving business landscape, our community's reliance on property tax will inevitably increase over time. This could lead to a tenfold rise in property tax burdens within the next decade or two, placing undue strain on residents and potentially driving businesses away to neighboring areas such as Hurricane or St. George. And Washington Fields Road obviously is a major thorough for you. You know, it's going to turn into commercial, I would assume, over time. And that's something that myself, my family, and those that we are surrounded with encourage. I mean, we want our kids to be able to go somewhere and do different things and be able to grow up in an area that is growing commercially as well as residentially. I think that we've developed a lot of the fields and we're going to continue to develop it, obviously, into homes. But I think that venues like the Burnett's not only meet the needs of our growing population, but will also cultivate a sustainable economic environment that benefits everyone. So I really would just say that I think it's a good thing. Obviously, you know, they've commented on the beauty of the home, but, you know, Brian and Jenica are amazing people and they really will take care of it. Thank you.
Thanks, McKay. Come on, let's go here and then we'll come back to you. Please state your name for the record and speak into the mic.
All right, I'm Kenneth Madden. I made one of the comments there. I really want to talk more about the notification process. I live right across the street from the residents who were notified on the other side of Camino Royale. I live on East Birkin Street, but it's actually my home borders on Camino Royale as well. There were no notices given to any residents on any of those streets. Likewise, I think on the other side of Lost Ridge, there were no notices given to there. I'm not sure what your process is for doing that, but I would certainly consider you to give more notice to residents out there, certainly for an effect of this nature, certainly a monumental effect to our neighborhood. Certainly would like to have more notification for that.
Perfect, yeah, we can answer that one pretty easy. Thank you.
If I may, so state law has a certain minimum noticing standard, which is a distance from the location that's proposed to change. Washington City has adopted a standard that's in excess of that. So we already do more than we're required to do. Thank you.
Kenneth, I'll tell you that, yeah, go ahead and come on up. I'll tell you that that is a comment that we get regularly here at the Planning Commission, and it's something that, it is amazing that the state law is so small as far as who's contacted, because if we're going above and beyond state law and we're still getting that as a regular thing, it is an issue, and that's way above my pay grade, which is 0. So, but I know that the state law, they've got to address that at some point where more people are notified, and maybe you could speak to that, actually. Sorry to put you in front of everybody while we might talk a little bit.
Yeah, I think Jody can wait just a minute, but yeah, the time we get the most complaints like the one just shared about the radius of notification is when there's vacant land, because that radius doesn't cover vacant land very well. When there's an area that's built out or mostly built out, we'll sometimes have address lists that are, you know, in the length of 40, 50, 60 mailers that go out. This one's challenge is a significant portion of the radius is one owner. And in most circumstances, we would have, a similar count as you would see to the south. And so I think it's a comment well placed, and we'll talk with our city leaders and see if they want to expand the radius even more.
Yeah. I guess your name's Jody. Come on up. Let's do this. Jody, please state your last name for the record and speak into the mic.
Jody Jolly. I'm from Phoenix. I came in, coming in from a Jolly family, and just seeing what the growth is out of control, which is awesome. Absolutely love it. It just makes people better. I've seen it personally. I welcome the Burnetts. I hope that they get to at least have a plan, not that necessarily they're going to execute it immediately, but they do deserve a plan to actually help elevate the area, because that will do so. Regardless of how we feel, that is besides the point, but it will actually help the community. I live in Carriage Lane in Skyline area. I've been there about 4 years, and absolutely love the area, and I hope it continues to grow. Like my husband stated, that we get more and more things to do, not necessarily also kid-friendly things, but adult activities as such as getting married. And that would be absolutely perfect and would help the community and rise in value, which I see. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Yes, come on up. Are you going to take your 3 minutes after all?
I'm going to try and keep it quick.
All
So my name's Susan Schmidt, and I think the anxiety we're all feeling is we are going to lose the quiet enjoyment of our property. The Burnetts are wonderful, no doubt about that, but we don't know how many nights a week it will be. We don't know the music. We don't know whether there will be alcohol served. I mean, they can make their statements, but nothing is in writing. And then if they sell that property, then what happens? Somebody can come in. So once you open the door to a bar in the community, to parties all the weekends, where does that leave the neighbors? We will lose that quiet enjoyment of property, and it seems like that's a fundamental right we have in this community. And so I just urge you to, take us in consideration who live around it. And I just want to say another thing. I have a friend that lives 2 miles from an event, and she still hears the music at night. So just because, you may not be the 24 houses that got that notification, you can be across the street like Ken, you can be, maybe where you guys, and you're going to hear, music at night. You're going to hear, parties, people coming through the neighborhoods. I mean, our weekends are gone. So much for having a barbecue on a Friday or Saturday night. Our backyard overlooks it. We love having company and having that quietness, and that's all gone if you add a wedding venue. To me, that's one of the worst possible outcomes is a wedding venue, because weddings they're supposed to be happy and joyful and noisy, but I don't think it's appropriate in a neighborhood.
Susan, what would you like to see there?
Well, she has she's talked about having a flower shop. I have no problem with that, and doing workshops. We've talked to her. We even invited the Burnetts to come speak to us to sort of allay our fears, our anxiety. Nothing's in writing, so you change that zone, and it could be anything. If she wants to do flowers, that's fine. If she wants to do workshops and bridal workshops, what she's talked about, I don't have a problem with any of that. I think she's really done a lovely job in fixing things up. I just think a wedding venue is one of the worst possible things you can add to a quiet neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, come on up.
So I won't add.
Hey, what's your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's written down, John Kevin Schmidt. And I won't add to the comments that I submitted to the commission. But anyway, but what I want to add to that is the fact that, and Sue started talking about, so we, one of the concerns we also have is, especially with a wedding venue, there is a trail that goes behind the houses there. We happen to enjoy that. We are one of the few people, I think, in this area that chooses not to surround their home with cinder block walls. We took ours down so that we have a beautiful view out, looking at the pasture, looking at the new temple, but it's open to that trail. So if all of a sudden you bring in an evening event, music, possible alcohol, so on and so forth, and they just wander down that trail, you're walking into the backs of neighborhoods. So there's a safety issue too, because we've never seen, as much as we've seen horses come along there, we enjoy the cattle back there, but it's not a policed area. So you might turn it into a walking trail, but that just opens up that whole area back there to those neighbors, as well as these neighbors on the Lost Ridge, because you can walk almost right into their backyards. So again, bringing that number of people into a wedding venue with that number of guests, I think there's a safety issue there as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, come on, we'll go here front and then we'll come back to you. Again, please state your name for the record and speak into the microphone.
This is scary. My name is Linda Mathias, and we back up to the Horse Motel. And our biggest concern, along with all the other concerns you've heard, is that once this gets zoned as commercial, then when the Horse Motel gets sold, as it will one day, that it will be much easier for you to turn around and just extend that and have that be commercial too. And then we'll be facing the same problems that these people are. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You in the back, yeah, come on up. Please state your name for the record and into the microphone.
Hi, I'm Thomas Barlow, and I live at 840, directly across, and my backyard has the easement in it that has that trail path, I guess, eventually will be going through there. And I'm just curious as if they're gonna be using Lost Ridge as an access through that canalway, or if that will be like an exit, or if we'll have increased traffic.
It's my understanding they can't, is that correct?
Are you asking about the trail or the applicant?
Well, because people do go through that access on that
In
side.
a car or?
But are you asking about people accessing this parcel
Yeah.
from the trail, or?
Well, because I'm right across and I have the gate there and people come through that side and people do drive down the
So-
other side. It's probably them using their own property. Like,
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So all vehicular access will have to come in on the current path that's shown there and come from Washington Fields Road. The city will not permit vehicular access on that trail once it's built, but that trail will be opened up as a public, essentially an active recreation way. It would be a public right of way for active recreation, which was non-motorized travel.
So
And so-
eventually there will be a paved path through there.
Correct.
And that'll be neighboring through my property there.
Yep.
That's
It'll
all
be
it's
part of,
worth.
it'll be part of the city trail system, just like the other trails throughout the city.
Perfect.
Cool,
Thank you.
thanks. Anybody else? Somebody's thinking about it. So here's the hard part. When I close the public hearing, what I'm gonna ask is that you don't speak you don't talk after that. And that's always hard, because that's when you start hearing things you either agree with or you don't agree with, and people are like, it's not true, and you start getting upset, and it's called clamoring. It works against you. And I remember we were going through training and they were talking about projects that have come to account, or commissions like this, and or city council. And the public starts clamoring and yelling and screaming and upset about what's going on. And it works against your in court, it could work against you. Like, let's say you're against a project and you start shouting and screaming and all these different things. Something ends up going to court, it works against you. Where it's like, well, you tried to sway them after the fact. It's really interesting how the legal system works. If all of you don't know that by now, I've certainly had my dose of learning as I've done this. But my point, I guess, is it's very difficult to sit there and listen to things that you might not like. And so if you have anything you'd like to say or questions that you'd like answered, I'm going to continue to keep this open if anybody would like to stand up and ask questions. Yeah, come on up. Please state your name for the record and speak in the mic.
My name is Stephanie Raleigh, and I live directly behind the Burnett's. Our backyard is one of the two houses along South Camino Real that our fence was taken down, so we have that same beautiful view that Kevin and Sue have. My question is, what is the criteria that you guys are looking for to say no, we are not going to zone this, or yes, we are? I mean, are we spinning our wheels by coming here if everybody has already made the decision that they're going to rezone this? Or?
No, not
So-
at all.
so that-
We
that's
haven't,
what
we
my
haven't made a
question is.
decision. And Anderson, I think I might ask you to answer this because you have some good points on it. I don't want to put you on the spot. But one of the things I mentioned at the beginning is we're a recommending body. So whether or not we say yes or no, it's going to go to city council with that as a recommendation from us that heard from all of you and got all of this. And we have different points of view and different opinions than the city council does. I can't stand politics more than anybody, and sometimes things get political, right? And this is not political. What we hear and see, does it follow the city code and does it follow state law? So does it follow state law? Yes, they have a right to do this on property that is state law, they can do that. The question really becomes, in my opinion, is do we think as a commission that we should recommend to the city council, yeah, we should go ahead and allow that zoning to be changed for this particular purpose? Now, you may, I'm sorry? Or general plan. You may or not like that, but that's what we're going to recommend to them one way or the other. I don't know which way it's going to go. You have 3 people that live there. They may have that's not a vested interest. That's not the right word, but they see this more regularly. It sounds like they know a lot of you. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I know how I feel about the project, and I'll speak to that in a little bit because we all have our opinions. So no, you're not spinning your wheels. This is exactly what you as the public should be doing, is expressing your concern. Some of the concerns, 100% valid. Some of them, 100% garbage, in my opinion. All I am is just the chair that can bundle this up and hand it to the city council and say, hey, we think this is a good idea, or we think it's a terrible idea. So no, by any means, it's not something that's set in stone at all. Do you want to add anything?
I
to
might
that,
speak.
Anderson?
Ma'am, you asked about the criteria. This process is one of the criteria. So Utah law requires before a city legislative body, and in this case, that would be the next step, the city council. This is the city's recommending body, and then this issue will go to the legislative body at another meeting. Before they can make a change like this, they must hold a public hearing. So this is one of those criteria. That's the legal criteria. The elected folks and the recommending folks look at it with what's in the best interest of the community and what's in the best interest of property rights of this applicant. And they try to weigh those two things. And so that's the criteria that I think is at play here tonight. And then ultimately, when the city council makes a decision on the application, is the criteria that they will weigh. But yeah, this hearing is also one of the legal criteria to even allow this to advance.
Okay.
So thank you for participating.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? Somebody's burning, answer your pants, you got to get up and say anything. No? Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And I'll take a second to exhale, but reach back to you as commissioners to ask questions to staff, concerns, and then we'll have the applicant, not the applicant, the applicant's representative here tonight? Okay. We might have you come up in a minute, Matt, but commissioners, what do you have for staff? I have a question. If you guys want to start, go ahead. I'm curious about something. When I went out and walked on this property and checked it out, because I really wanted to get a good understanding of what it is that we were going to be discussing. The driveway going in. So I've been thinking about how to ask this, and I don't know exactly how to say it, so it's going to be wrong, but I think you'll understand my point. When you are driving down that into this applicant's property, on the right, the road is a lot higher than the houses on the right, so you do look directly into the backyard. And again, this is where it's wrong, but whose fault is that? Like, how does that happen? How are we as a city, somewhere in time that was allowed? It doesn't seem right. It's kind of weird, and I'm wondering how that ended up that way.
I'm going to take one stab at it. It's going to be an irrigation issue.
Yep.
Anything in those fields of separation of heights and things, it's all about the flow of water to get to whatever over the years. It may not have been irrigated as much today as it was 10, 20 years ago. Thad might know, he might have played in the irrigation channels back then, but out in the fields, a lot of those elevation changes are because of the flow of water to get onto the fields.
So when the driveway, if you will, was created, were the houses not there? Or if they were, I would have thought they would have made him grade that down. So there is some element of privacy or something.
I'm
It
going
just
to
doesn't
guess
feel
that the houses came after that driveway, but Thad, you got history.
Yeah,
I don't
I'll
know.
talk to it. So where the trail now is where McKay and I used to float along the canal in tubes,
I
right?
told you.
And so it was an open canal. Now it's a buried 60-inch pipe, but there was a canal right there. That's where the neighbors and all the neighborhood kids from up in town and, well, McKay was way south of the fields, but that's where we'd go float and recreate in the summertime. That road is high because all the fields above it are flowing down towards it with flood irrigation, and that road is there to stop the water from flowing into the houses and push it out to the road where it collects and enters the storm drain at that point. And so the Commissioner, you mentioned as a problem or a mistake, I actually think the road was built high as a solution to keep the irrigation water out of the homes. And so it was the solution to keep them from getting wet from the fact that the historic pastoral use was flood irrigation that flowed right to where they were before there was houses put there.
So it was before houses.
The houses came after
Correct.
that buildup.
The other reason is more a soil-based. When a developer comes in and converts a historically flood irrigated field into homes, there's compaction issues with the soil, and so they're required to over excavate and then repack it in. And frequently in the process of over excavating, removing the topsoil and just repacking it in, it's just the natural thing that the elevation of those building lots becomes less high than it was when it was a operating field.
On that particular item, I agree with the residents 100% that I would hate it if I lived there and cars were going by looking into my backyard, just for the record. It just seems like the city or the actual builder of the homes, there should have been something looked at to, I don't know, to solve that, so it's not a problem in the future. The expectation that at some point in time, that's going to be developed into anything else than a field, it seems like that's going to be a problem that maybe was kicked down the road from 30 years ago. I don't know.
Well, there's a number of things. The fact of the matter is the homeowners bought there with that condition in place. Under the current approvals, it could be a roping arena tomorrow, right? And they would have to deal with steers running and cowboys yipping and yelling as they tried to rope. And so there's other things that could happen there that might be more offensive, but are under the same term. But yeah, right now, and what they've known is it's been kind of a peaceable pastoral pasture. And there's been one home, and the traffic of that one home hasn't been anything that the city's received complaints about.
I had to get that off. I just wanted to know that one. That one, you guys go ahead.
So this is Commissioner Mitchell. I'll share some of my thoughts. One, I'm kind of disappointed that Brian isn't here, that Jenica and Brian didn't come. I actually know Brian really well. They are great individuals. I wish that they would actually be here and kind of address the people and kind of talk to them and share their ideas. I think we see that quite often at the commission where the applicant actually comes and hears the voice of the people. I'm kind of going back to, I feel like it's a bigger question. Like this property along that corridor should be looked at from a whole as a city and determine what the best use is for that property. I find it hard right now to make the change on the general plan. And I'm kind of siding with the residents. You know, if I lived close to there, I would struggle. But also, if it was developed correctly and there were some buffers put in there between the residents and, you know, potentially some commercial use, it could be a different scenario. And I think there's enough property there to do those buffers. So I think right now on this particular item, I don't feel that the timing's right.
So it's interesting because the way we have to do our land use, tonight's just a general plan, and then we'd have a zoning hearing. The process has room for an applicant to suggest solutions to say the high road they could reduce the elevation of that road, for example, as part of their project plan, or they could propose a wall or something that would block the neighbors. And so there's possibly solutions that may not be presented at general plan, but might, you know, be a possibility at their subsequent steps. And so to your point about the applicants not here, I'm not going to propose any solutions for them, but these are the type of things that frequently have solutions as this process works its way through the public realm.
Well, normally we wouldn't know that they want to put a wedding venue on for a general plan amendment. We just know that it needs to be, we want to general plan this to be community to commercial. And if you come in my opinion, if you come in and wanted to do community commercial back that far back off the Washington Fields Road, I would say no, because there's no feathering. I believe we've talked before about having some commercial there, but up towards the Washington Fields Road, and then feather it back into the homes that are existing all the way back. And I believe that's the way it still should be done. I don't think that is going to create, the entrance isn't going to meet access management. I don't know, it might, but I don't know how they're going to get access management that close to another intersection that's very scary to cross. So whether it's a wedding venue or not, I think a lot of people don't like the wedding venues. I look at it as like having a church in your backyard. They'll use it on the weekends, but that's about it for the most part. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that it's so far back and there's no buffer to the existing.
I just want to point this, you had the question, I was curious myself, that red dot means that is an intersection that's planned for the future when it meets the warrants to have a signalized intersection, just for information.
No, yeah, I remember that coming up because it definitely needs one. It's hard to cross.
With that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about that entrance, that access point. One of the things that I don't like at all about this particular item is that access point. And can you speak to that, of like what their expectation is? I went out and, like I said, I walked the property and I talked to the applicant and I asked them what their intent was. And so I think I know what they're trying to do, but I want to know what the city says about it. Where's John? John is
He was trying to hide.
He's trying to hide. He hates coming up here, and I love calling him out up here. Please state your name for the record. John, what are we going to make me feel more comfortable about this if that was the only thing that was sitting in the way? Help me feel better about that.
It's already an existing access point. It was granted with that parcel of land when it was developed. By our access management, the only thing that will be allowed there is right in, right out only.
So right in, right out. If you're going right in, what about cars trying to get in and you've got 15 cars showing up? I don't know. I don't know.
It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but that is the approved access for that property. So I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Because that is their rightful access.
I think it's fine for one home, but to access 8 acres, I don't believe it makes it too big of an area. But that, like I said, I feel like we're looking at the wedding venue that needs to go here when we haven't even got our general plan changed yet. We're putting the cart before the horse.
Matt, put this on your list of things I'd like to hear. If they have an idea to widen that or do something about that, that's something that's kind of a sticking point in my mind.
Yeah, and you can see some of my notes on the flow chart in there and stuff in regards to, there would be a substantial number of improvements that they would need to do for this development if it were to go through.
Does it change at all if there was a street light there, or is it the same if the light was there or not?
It won't
That has
matter.
no merit.
It's proximity, so it'll always be right in, right out based on our traffic access.
So if somebody was leaving the venue and they have to turn right, would there be anything to prevent them from going down 100 yards down Washington Fields Road, making a U-turn and going back the other way?
Only if there's an officer sitting there.
Other than a police officer. See, because I could see that being a problem too, where then you have that and, I don't know, it's messy.
The striping that there, it doesn't allow it, but we all know that striping doesn't force people to not break the laws. But yes, the only access approved is a right in, right out only.
Okay. All right, thanks. I don't have any other questions for John. Do you guys? I never allow this. I saw a question. I'll go ahead and ask. Because you put so much into this, I want to hear your question. I want to make sure we get them.
The only question I have is it wide enough?
Ryan McAllister's asking if it's wide. Here he goes. Come on up, Ryan.
Ryan McAllister, I'm wondering if what the property owner currently owns is wide enough for commercial use.
For what they want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll answer that, John, if I want me to. For commercial use, a one-way lane would not be sufficient, so they would need enough width to travel two lanes of traffic. I haven't measured it, but my understanding is that would be the plan, is they would need to acquire enough land to make that is that correct, Matt? A two-way road.
This is Commissioner Anderson. So a couple things to think about here, just some of my thoughts. One, with the access road here, I mean, if the access road is there, then yeah, it'd have to be wider. So they'd either have to acquire property, from the guy neighboring them to make it a wider road, or they could acquire property, say through the Horse Motel exit off of Washington Fields Road and come down through. And there's a number of ways they could get there, but they'd have to do something. So that's one way of getting there. I personally think that, I mean, if you put something in there, I think leaving the house portion in that lane as the low density is better, and keep that other separate with a different entrance. I think maybe getting, if they can acquire an entrance up through the Horse Motel, it's already an exit off of Washington Fields Road. But I mean, but again, that's not something that we're addressing here. That's a zoning thing. But those are some ideas some of the things they'd have to go through. As far as buffering, things like that, like Thad said, if they do go through here, depending on the type of general plan and zoning, it could be a condition to lower the road, et cetera, or put up a block wall or whatever. But again, it's not what we're talking about here. I'm just addressing some of the concerns. On the backside, that's another thing that could have a condition on there at the zoning stage to put, a block wall in next to the trail, which provides, some buffering there. That plus them building the trail out, leaves a larger buffer to the neighborhood. With what you said, Commissioner Bullock, about feathering, you're right, we like to feather. However, the feathering, what most the neighbors here don't realize is that feathering means that whole backside would be townhomes, and then you'd have commercial here. So I mean, I don't know if people would prefer, a barn that holds weddings versus a townhome community back there. I mean, because that's what feathering would be.
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, you can go into
townhomes, duplexes, whatever. But
yeah, but we can move. We did it the same down on 2000, right, or George Washington in that.
I'm just saying sometimes feathering might be less desirable than a barn and a preserved farm that holds weddings. That's all I'm saying.
Can't you go two classes from low density to two classes from low density? Isn't that a maximum? Like, you can't go from low density to high density. You've got to go low density to.
Well, actually, that's more in the zoning. We don't get into that.
Don't get
in the
into that.
general plan. It's the zoning steppage. So
again, I'm just talking about I'm just addressing what you said.
I agree with you.
I'm just saying that they may or may not like this might be more preferable to what would be considered feathering, is all I'm saying.
But like I was saying, though, it's not about the wedding venue. It's about the neighborhood commercial right there.
Sure.
And if it is neighborhood commercial, say something happens, they sell this property in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they put a 3-story office building there. It can go in neighborhood commercial, correct? Isn't that what we just decided?
Well, I mean, because
AP can go in
there. So yeah, it could be a
you could
45-foot.
You could put a 3-story office building, correct?
Don't get any ideas, MacArthur. Slow down back there. He's thinking of buying and putting a 3-story building there.
So tonight is just the general plan.
Right, that's what.
So they would have the ability to propose a zone that fits within the general plan designation. So they'd still need to come back and propose zoning and then go through a similar process. But yeah, if the general plan changes, right now, The vested land rights are only those uses defined in city code within low density, which is, well, there's a little more than just one house that they could do there. There's other things that could happen along that road without any change at all. But yeah, tonight's would be to say, we're going to change the general plan to a designation that would allow more zone applications than has previously been allowed there. And so, yeah, you're right. Any change to that will open up the type of application that could come. And one of those could be a commercial building, if that was changed, and then that was the proposal.
This is Commissioner Anderson, and I do think that, and again, it's technically not a meeting about whether it's going to be a wedding venue or otherwise, but talking about the wedding, I mean, my daughter just got married 2 weeks ago in a barn, no less, Seg Miller barn, and we had to wait 7 months to find an opening. It was booked out 7-8 months, in advance, and as was everywhere else in town. So I can see the need. I never would have thought there was a need until I tried to find a place for my daughter to get married, and it was extremely hard. And I would like to think that my daughter, that the wedding didn't bring any ruffians in or was a nuisance or anything. Anyway.
You must not have invited any Seg
Millers.
Millers.
I didn't invite you.
Yeah, you didn't invite any Seg Millers.
But I think that the best course of action here, honestly, I mean, the biggest problem that I see with the neighbors is, like Sue said, is the uncertainty. Not knowing, and like you said, that if it gets general plan into neighborhood commercial, then yes, they could sell it, or it could be changed into something that goes in neighborhood commercial. It would be a straight zoning thing, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of say with staff, city council, with the neighborhood, other than maybe a conditional use permit type thing. There'd be a very little say. There is a solution to that, though, and this is what I would propose. I think the neighborhood commercial general plan is the wrong ask. I think it should be asked as PUDC, and that way they have to come before city council and planning commission with their plan development. And for all the people in the audience, the difference is neighborhood commercial is a straight zone, which means if it gets changed to neighborhood commercial, then that land is entitled with certain rights that they can put certain things on them per code. It doesn't matter if people like it or not, like that's what it can be entitled to. If you do a plan development, that's entirely different. They have to come in with the entire plan, the sketches, the elevation, the architecture, the lighting, the hours of operation, the buffers, the walls, the trails, the height of the road, all the questions that everybody has. They would have to come in and show that entire plan and say, this is what it's going to look like, this is when we're doing hours of operation, et cetera. And that way, public could have input, city council could see that input, and then but at the same time, the property owners could still exercise their property rights and do something on their property. I think it's a much better solution than just going straight zoning, because straight zoning has a lot of unknown risk on the backside that I don't think. And even if the property owners here are 100% committed to, we want a nice lovely barn with fields around it and this and that, that could totally change. I mean, they could sell it, they could have 100 different things happen. If it's changed to a PUDC, then none of that can happen. They have to come, they have to bring a full plan. Everybody can see it. And if that's the case, maybe they do bring a wedding venue, but that might be a good way to preserve some of the fields, to have a barn and to have like a lot of the areas that we've done PUDC, the city council and planning commission have been able to really work on making sure it's architecturally pleasing and it's nice to the neighborhood and stuff. So that would be my recommendation. Is I think we recommend denial of the general plan for neighborhood commercial, but recommend approval for PUDC. That would be my suggestion.
Matt, I want to give you the opportunity to speak to this. I'm sure you're sitting back there wanting to say some things. We certainly have some questions. And one of the comments we always get is that we're in the pocket of the developer and all this stuff. Matt is somebody I actually do know. Usually I don't know anybody, but Matt's a really good guy, and I just feel like I should say it. I really want to hear what you have to say, but you know I'll cut you off the knees if you're doing something wrong, so hit it.
Agreed. No, I appreciate that. Good evening, commissioners, and appreciate the time. Appreciate the evening, the discussion, the concerns, which are all legit, and which is concerns that need to be addressed and need to be mitigated if anything goes and moves forward. Back up on a couple different things, just to let Commissioner Mitchell know, the Burnetts would have been here, but he's in a training in Florida. I know it's kind of a sad thing, but he's over there, or else he would have been here tonight. If we do move on to next week, they will definitely be here to address any concerns that the city council might have if we get to that point. Backing up a little bit, the great thing about our process in government and here in Washington City is it is a process. There are boxes that need to be checked. There are concerns and things that need to be addressed so that everyone understands what is being presented and how it's being presented. The concerns that was brought up, about traffic, about noise, about dust, about access, about parking, all those are legitimate concerns, but we believe, the Burnetts as well, that all of those concerns can be mitigated and can be mitigated correctly. We have certain mechanisms in place on traffic impact study that is required. We have other things that need to be in place as far as noise and noise ordinances. We have things as far as lights and how late and so on and so forth, and how that can be regulated. So I think the Burnetts is comfortable with having that discussion and coming up with a reasonable solution or proposal to be talked about and to be discussed and to be debated. The biggest fear in anything is the unknowns. And I believe that's part of what the emotion or the concern is with the good people here tonight. And I agree with them. What we don't know scares us. And when we don't know something, it also expands and multiplies because this could happen. What if this happens and this can happen? I do like Commissioner Anderson's counsel, advice, and we would love to take that responsibility on and provide more information and how we would address the concerns that were mentioned tonight. And then take those concerns one at a time and kind of share, these are the reasons and this is why we're going to address those concerns. I believe really that we'd love to even visit with the community on the site, not in this setting or not in this room, and just kind of hear them and hear their feedback. I do have a little delicate spot on the comment on being quiet. There's a couple things can happen. Right now, with a low density R110, you could probably build about 34 homes in this 8-acre parcel, which is great and which works with the community that's around it. If we're trying to keep things quiet, most of the time, this proposed change or this proposed use could address that. I would venture that 2/3 of the year, it'll be quiet. 1/3, there will be, an event there, and that's 52 weeks out of the weekend. Times that by 2, if it's a Friday and Saturday, you're 104. So 365 days, most of that, or 2/3 of that, will be a quiet time. And it'll be built, like I said, the Burnetts have done a great job with their home and remodeled their home, and they're not going to change. That is who they are, and that is what they want to provide as far as a look and a feel and a service to the community. So if they do, or if we do move forward, the whole project will look very similar to what their current home looks like. And as a side note, obviously it's today, but they do live on site when there's a venue, if there's an event, if this is successful. They're the first ones that's going to be, handling whatever the situation is. So I think, again, I do like the idea of going through the PUDC, which is what we're planning on doing next, because we understand that before we do that step, we would have to go through a plan amendment to, like this evening, like changing it from the current zoning to a neighborhood commercial zoning, which is what has been proposed this evening as far as a general plan amendment. And then our next step would be absolutely a PUDC process. Any questions?
Can you understand, Matt, the concern about why we feel, some of us might feel that this is early? Like when you look, you've been in this game a long time for multiple cities around here. When I look at that, I kind of agree with Bullock when he's like, hey, this kind of feels kind of early. Like, I feel like we should do the others now. That's not to say that we can't make moves and go one way or the other on this, but you can understand that, right? When you look at this, you're like, why are we doing the back piece, not the front piece? And I understand why. But at the same time, that's why it makes me concerned. It's not to say no, but it makes me concerned. Do you have a comment about that? Like you've been around this a lot longer than I have.
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, property ownership. If they own the property that's closest to Washington Fields Road, I'm sure the proposal would be the same. It just so happens they own the property on the backside with like a flag lot with an access coming off of Washington Fields Road, with some of the interactions or business opportunities that Mrs. Burnett is involved in. She sees the need for a venue like this. She absolutely sees that need with the people and her clients that she works on. Hence why this is being brought forward to Planning Commission and City Council.
Yeah. Do you have additional questions for Matt? I don't want to cut you guys off, but.
I don't. This is another, and I don't intend to make this personal with Brian and Jenica, but your comments about them being on the premises, just knowing them and their history, they do bounce a lot. They buy property, then they'll move on. And so, you can say that they live there and that what goes on there, but they could easily just move too and turn this into something different.
Good point. Good point.
That's why I think that designate it as a PUDC where we can see the plan. That's the way to go then, 100%.
So again, Matt or Commissioner Anderson already said it, but a PUDC means they have to come back in and show us exactly what they're putting, and it can't change from that. So it's almost like all the comments or most of the comments and the people submitting things online, we're submitting it as if we know or have kind of seen the beginning of the commercial development. And that's not, it would have been much easier for all of us to understand, us included, if we would not even have known they were going to put a barn there for a wedding venue. That's typically what we see, and this would have been a lot easier. But then even my own brain gets mixed up in, well, what about this? What about that? When really that's the cart before the horse. And so when he's saying that, the PUDC, we get to see what they're going to build there, and you could say yes or no. And then a lot of the comments that you said would make more sense because you see it, and you're like, hey, this barn looks like garbage. It's an A-frame or whatever. And you have an opportunity to see what's going to be put there. And that comes after. If this goes to City Council as recommended for approval, and they approve it, then the PUDC comes back to us. Is that something as a condition, or is that something we need that'll just happen?
Well, you would mitigate that out. They're going to give you a proposal at that zone change if this gets passed. Let's just, again, but that would be the next process. They're going to come in, they're going to show you the whole layout. They're going to show you the parking, the 50, whatever it ends up being. They'll show you that. They're going to show you what the building looks like. Access. Is that barn enough? Is it not barn enough? But those are the things you can talk about during that zone change, because again, they have to show you what it is and the uses, and they are locked in at that. They couldn't then come back and in that barn do something that it was not approved to use. But in a C1, once the building is done, and if it's a permitted inside, it doesn't matter. They could put a Les Schwab in that barn you see what but on a PUD, they're not. They're locked in at that use would be. They're going to be approved as a venue for weddings and whatever else they put in their list. Okay, because they could do dinners there, let's just say, or whatever they want to choose to do, they'll put on the list. You approve all those uses and the look, and they are locked in on that. There will be, you know, that zoning is in essence a development agreement itself, and that's all they can do is what's been approved. If they change it, they'll have to come back and amend that and go through the whole process again, where everybody would be invited to come see what the new proposal is.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So commissioners, one of the things that caught my attention, I've gone full circle 3 or 4 times on this thing tonight, is something that the city attorney said. He said, and I'm just going to kind of read it how I process it in my mind, that as a commissioner right now, I'm going to vote and send to city council whether I recommend for approval or denial based on a change to the general plan that allows more zone applications to come forward than what it is now of low density. And when he said that, I was like, I have no problem with that. Forget about anything else I've heard of what's going to be on there. I absolutely agree with that and have zero problem. This is my own opinion. I'm the dumbest guy in the room. I'll tell all of you that. Trust me, don't listen to much of what I'm saying. But in my opinion, as a Washington City resident, having myself live further down Washington Fields Road, I'm not predicting anything, but just from the layperson in my eyes, I would strongly expect this to be developed, all of that, into some sort of a commercial thing in the future. That would be my expectation. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's a barn and a wedding venue. I don't know if it's a Target. I have no idea. But I know that the city, and as I've watched the city develop over the 6 years or so I've been doing this, I've watched pockets. This is good for commercial. This is good for that. And it kind of starts to be a natural feel, regardless of how the community might feel about it, because nobody actually wants what's going to be built. Typically, they don't want that. They don't want this right there because we have a field or whatever. And I get that. I totally get that as well. There's some stuff that's come to my neighborhood that I absolutely hate, but I deal with it, and I still hate it, but I still deal with it. So when you said that for me, that was like, hey, you know what? I have no problem having a general plan change so we can have more applications in low density, because I don't believe the rest of that is going to stay or ever will be. I shouldn't say stay. It ever will be low density to match it all. That would be ideal if it was all low density and it continued to be houses and all of those lots there that probably 4 or 5 people own. I don't know how many. So when you said that, I kind of got rid of all of the noise that we're hearing, and it's good noise, because the truth is, my initial thought was we need to either table or recommend for denial this, because there's a lot of concerns, and I think we're early. And the residents, it should be easier. It should be, you know, Matt, you know this, it should be easier when you have all these residents showing up saying, hey, something's wrong here. That's usually an indication that something probably is. And there is a lot of things that need to be looked at hardcore. But when it comes down to whether or not I believe city council should consider allowing this to change so we can have more applications come to us for commercial, I believe it's a yes for me.
But it would be applications for commercial in that area, not necessarily residential. By changing it, it would be commercial applications in that area, correct?
So if it was neighborhood commercial, yeah, you could do residential applications and then neighborhood commercial that qualifies with that designation.
So you could do houses and...
You can do mixed uses if you go PUD.
Right, but this isn't asking for PUD, this is asking for neighborhood commercial.
That's right.
And that's what...
So, but what, and because I would rather see, like I said, the feathering moving it out, because if it was, whether it was a venue or not, I would say no, looking at what it is, and that's how we should be looking at it, in my opinion, not knowing what's going there. So I still feel like those homes that are there need to have smaller homes buffering them from commercial. And you probably could do that in a PUDC, but in the neighborhood commercial, I'm a no with it until they change it to something else.
So I'm fully in support of exactly what you said. I would like to see exactly, I want to open it up to allow that to come to us, not other stuff. But if that comes to us, that's what I want to see. And then we can make a decision at that time whether we think that's a good idea or not, for city council to take it.
Just Commissioner Anderson, so right now the question, because this is just a general plan event, we don't, all these things we're talking about are zoning issues, which is not what we're voting on. I mean, the applicant has the right to ask for this, and based on city code, state law and so forth. But that's why the real question here is what kind of general plan, are we going to recommend? Because if you do straight zoning with neighborhood commercial, it is an unknown can of worms with very little oversight, whereas if you do a PUDC, there's a lot of oversight. They've got to put a lot more time and money into showing what the project looks like, and you got a lot better chance of it turning out nice than, somebody talked about, we need to rein in, development. Well, this is the only method of reining in development here, because they do have property rights to develop, but doing a PUDC is the only way to put any sort of real oversight on that.
That's the only thing I want to see in all of Washington County moving forward, personally, if it was mine, because we could see what was coming so I don't know how that looks. Maybe I'm saying something totally different. Maybe I'm saying the same thing as you guys. I don't know. Again, there's a lot of noise to this based on our past experience with items that come to us because of how it's coming. We know something that shouldn't be involved with it.
So general planning is the city's forecasting of what its future uses should include. And when an applicant comes to our community development department, you'll notice on zone change applications, one of the first points on the staff report is this is consistent with the general plan. They won't usually recommend any zone change that is not consistent with the general plan. And so they will help them get to the general plan process if need be. And if that succeeds, they then have the right to bring a zone change. Zone changes where property rights vest as to what the uses can be. This one tonight doesn't vest anything. It would just make what we think is their desired application conform with the general plan. If the general plan doesn't change, staff wouldn't support them to bring a zone change that isn't consistent with that. And so, yeah, this is more of the city's long-range view of what should be allowed to be applied for at this location. Zone changes where we really get to the nuts and bolts. PUD ties site planning and zone changes together. So that the zone change itself and the vesting is tied to look, feel, and the details that are presented to the commission and the council. Straight zoning would be similar to general plan. They would have an R1, R2, just some designation that in our code says you can build this many units per acre, right? As low density today, they could bring a residential within this general plan designation that would allow a certain amount of houses within the acreage that's there today. So they're vested for certain things already that could be changed from what they currently do.
So this Commissioner Mitchell, so maybe Ted, you can help walk me through, and Drew maybe help me too. So when the city does organize their general plan overview or future planning, what types of things come into consideration? Because me personally, I feel like this whole section, not just this one little 8-acre piece, but this whole area could be looked at as a whole, as a community, and input gathered, and then come up with a city general plan that works well for this area before it becomes, and it gets piecemealed out into little parts and pieces, but as a view of the whole city, hey, what would be great here, and what can we do now to plan for that?
So usually the general plan is updated in regions because the whole city gets really, really hard to forecast at once. The city council has talked about general planning, redoing the general plan for the fields. When they sit down and do that, they're looking at things like transportation corridors, more macro details as to what they forecast the future uses should be and should include. You are correct that it's been a while since they looked at this one. Part of the reason why so much of the fields is still general plan low density is because it hasn't changed for a long time, right? It was low density because it used to be open fields. And so it's probably fair to say that it's time to look at that and, put some goggles on that are looking a couple decades in the future and say, this is what it's going to become. And that's a hard conversation for those of us that grew up floating down canals and picking figs off the banks, right? But yeah, it's probably time for that conversation to organize.
So the question is, where does that leave us here tonight, commissioners? Like, we gotta somehow come up with a motion on this. Fire away.
So Commissioner Anderson, I'll make a motion to recommend denial of G-24-03, request to amend the general plan land use map located at 2651 South Washington Fields Road from the current low density residential to a new proposed neighborhood commercial general land plan designation. And then Melody, with that, I would like to motion that we recommend approval of G-24-03 from low density residential to a PUD general plan. Send that to city council for recommend.
They're not asking for it.
I know.
I don't
That's
think
why I'm
we,
recommending denial, but I'm providing an alternative.
yeah, but then I think we just deny it and then let them come back and say that you would support that on, you know. It sounds, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. It sounds to me like we're denying this, but if you'll change it to that, then we're okay with it.
So I think what I hear him saying is asking somebody to deny this application, but to give the council the recommendation to consider it as a PUD.
So I agree with the denial, but my recommendation is more kind of how I shared my thoughts. Like, I feel like my recommendation would be to the city as a whole, let's look at this whole area around that bend and come up with a general plan that seems suitable for the whole space rather than just the 8 acres. So my recommendation would be a little bit different than what Corey's recommended.
Do you have any advice for us before we look for a second on this motion?
A motion's made, so if you can't get a second, it'll just die, due to what they call a lack of a second. And then you can entertain another motion. Doesn't mean this gets denied,
I mean, really, do our recommendations mean anything? Do we just stick with the denial and then
let city council go?
Let city council come up with?
Well, I would always tell any planning commission, send forth what you can still send forth whatever. You're recommending a vote on the application itself, but feel free as a planning commission to tell your city council, but what we'd like to see, but you need to be collective in it. It's, or at least majority, whatever that may be. I mean, you can just hold to a denial, and there's times that's the only thing that needs to be done and should be done. It's just that. But if you have, hey, I may not be happy with this, but if this, feel free to always pass that on as, I would put that in your in your motion as part of the recommendation. There's nothing wrong with doing that for them.
So just curious, Jason, I'm kind of curious what your recommendation be, and maybe Pete, what are your thoughts?
Well, we got a motion on the table. We got to clear that up. I mean, or let it do its course. So it's either a second or it's going to die. So.
All right. It feels like the motion's going to die, so let's talk about this for a second, make sure we got it right.
Okay, and so my opinion.
The motion fails. So we're going to continue our discussion.
So I agree with you 100% to denial, but I'm on the side with Commissioner Mitchell that we need to look at it all, kind of figure out what we're feeling for this little bit of an area. I don't know if we can deny. I feel like if we deny and say a PUDC or a PUD, then we're kind of pitching, we're doing a little more, well, this piece is okay, but not up here, or if we do PUD back here and then move it forward. And I'm fine with that. I think that I don't know, I just want a broader view of what everybody's looking at, because the general plan doesn't show, what does the general plan show for right there?
Low density.
Shows low density. I'll just give you a visual.
Yeah, because I pulled it up on my iPad, but it's not.
Also want to reiterate that, again, we're a recommending body, and we can send this to city council. we can send the city council with the denial or approval, and they're the ones that are the deciding vote on this. So either way, go ahead, Pete, sorry.
No, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. So,
Well, I just answer. I mean, because I agree with what you guys are saying. We've said it on multiple projects. We don't want to piecemeal, general plan. I've always been of that opinion. It's not going to work to try and hold city council hostage and say, well, we're going to deny because we want you to fix the general plan. I mean, we've been barking up this tree for a long time saying we want, the general plan updated, but in this particular case, this person's asking for, a general plan amendment. We said we don't like certain things because we don't like the uncertainty. The applicant said they would be willing to do, a PUD, which answers all of these questions of uncertainty, and it still is in city council's, court as to what they're going to do. But if we just say we deny it because we want you to fix the general plan, they're just going to do whatever they do, and it's not going to matter what our recommendation. So I just think we should have a well thought out recommendation rather than. I mean, I agree. I don't like to piecemeal it either, but.
and that's my thing is that it just feels like it's piecemealing it. So if it's just a denial, then it's just a denial, in my opinion. I mean, I think we're all on the same page here.
Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just make a motion to deny, leave it at that? And then, I mean, Melody's already put our comments in there, what we think, city council can read our comments, what we thought were good ideas, and they can make their own decision based on that. We want to just do that?
I like that 100%. That's
because that way they can read what we all thought about it, and
yeah, and that's how I
do
like
it.
to go.
I'll make a new
I feel like we're telling them how we want to do it
That's
rather
fine.
than letting them make their own decision.
Okay. So Melody, just on our various comments, I mean, just leave those as, those were our comments about what we thought. So I'm going to make a new motion to recommend denial of G-23-04 to amend the general plan land use map from low density residential to neighborhood commercial, and send that to city council for recommendation.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
I guess I should say not recommendation, for consideration.
I've got a first by Anderson. I've got a second by Bullock. Individual voting, Bullock.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm a nay. The motion passes that this will go to city council with our recommendation for denial. And that will be heard when?
Next week. And it will not be a public hearing, it'll be a public meeting.
Okay.
So nobody is guaranteed to speak, but like a public hearing, you are guaranteed an opportunity to stand during that time, but this is you hold the public hearing, so.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Hope you learned something and you can use it for your benefit in the future. We're going to go ahead and take a couple of minutes, and those that would like to leave at this time can do so, and then we'll continue on our meeting. So I'll call for a 2-minute recess. All right, we're going to get started in about 1 more minute. Okay. I was going to say, what are you dragging him in here for? All right, Melody, can you hear me okay? Michelle, can you hear me okay? It seems to be the theme.
Yes, I'm back. Hear me? I'm back.
All right, Melody, I just lost one of the commissioners, so we'll have to wait another minute.
Okay. 10-4.
Okay, we're going ahead and get started, and Anderson will join us here shortly. Our next item, number 6, this is a code amendment. It's a public hearing as well for consideration of approval of a code amendment for Title 9-8B-5, side yard setbacks located in R110 zone for the Washington City Code. I'll turn the time over to staff for their report on this item.
We're still.
Sorry, I had my feet tangled up with the cord down there below. Thought it was going down for the count, but appreciate that. Commissioners, Washington City is wishing to amend a portion of the city code, specifically Title 9, Section 8B-5, which is entitled Area, Width, and Yard Regulations. That's where you find all the setbacks that you have to adhere to. The one we're going is, of course, it stands out in red. I hope you can see that. Right now, currently, the R110, when you go to the side yard in feet over here, it currently is 10 and 10. The proposal is to go, they can have 8 on one side, 10 on the other, but also want to throw in the asterisk, which will take you down to the bottom. This passes in this zone district, no 2 homes would be allowed to be closer than 18 feet to each other. So that means I wouldn't have 2 8-foots back to back or side to side in this case. It just helps keep a little bit, especially, the fear is as I thought this through, it's not so much on single story homes, but when you put a 2-story home on there and it's on the 8-foot, it feels like it's closer than 8 feet. Anybody in construction business knows what I'm talking about. It feels like it's probably at 6 feet or something. So just when it goes taller. So we just wanted to make sure we kept at least a minimum. And we have this in other, like I say, in PCDs, this is common that we put, you can have 5 on one and 10 on the other, but no 2 homes would be closer than 15 feet in some of those developments that we have in master plan communities. So So that's the theory behind this, is just to allow a little bit in the R110, that the homes could go to 8 and 10 on that. And that's really it. I don't have any secret sauce or anything behind it. It's just a proposal we've been asked to consider, and staff wrote the amendment up, and this would be the new chart in section 9(8)(b)(5). But I'll answer any questions you may have on this
Sorry,
proposal.
What was it before the change?
10.
I thought it always was 8 and 10, so I'm good with it.
Yeah,
Drew,
the
what
same
are-
thing you see down here, the 10 and 10, that's what it looks like in the R110. In this R112 district would be, it was 10 and 10, but now it's proposal 8 and 10.
Drew, I've got two questions for you. What are some of the theories in I'm maybe going to your education. What are the theories between these side yard setbacks? What's the purpose that they accomplish?
Well, setbacks give people, I think, first and foremost, in my 30-plus years in this, is assurances about a home being too close to mine. In theory, that's what it is. I own my property. I think people should have property rights, but hey, don't be right on the other side of my fence.
So that explains why this scale changes with the acreages.
Yeah, so the bigger the acreage, people want more room, right?
So
I have a bigger lot, I want more room between us.
It's not necessarily that a bigger lot needs more space between houses. This gives the owner of a home on a bigger lot some guarantee that another house can only get so close.
Right, because again, the bigger my lot, it goes back to the same theory of having somebody right on the other side of the fence, right? Well, hey, we all own half acres here. Why do you have to build right here? So there's those minimums that just give people those assurances on the home itself. But again, we know we can, we allow for detached accessory things to come at different setbacks, so.
Drew, can I ask a question? Commissioner Anderson, what's the reasoning for the 18 feet though? Seems like a random number. I mean, it's either gonna be, well, I guess you could have 10.
It's gonna be 16 or 20. We'll
So
just
the
go
other
right
guy's
to
gotta
the
be
quip.
10.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Not allowing it to be 8.
We just don't want 16, 2 8s to end up, and especially were you here when I talked about the 2-story, or did you kind of just slip in? Or that's all I'm saying. So when you get to that 8, and if I had 2 8s back, and 2 2-story homes, it would just feel tighter. And we're just trying to help again keep some relative room for comfort and aesthetically and everything else.
In general, I mean, when you're building a house, it's always going to be like on that street. It's almost always going to have 8 on the one side and 10 on, because you put the garage, on the same side of the house based on the slope of the road, and so.
Yeah, the only theory that this comes into play, that it ever may not work, is if everybody starts building from the outside in on a particular street, and the last lot, both those people on each side could have already taken, those, and they're stuck with
most of the
with
buildable
that.
spots.
If there's any slope to the road at all, you put the garage on the high side, so.
Right.
I like this as a builder, because one side of the house, you don't need a full 10 feet. It's always like totally unusable. It's just, you have an air conditioner there and nothing there. And then the other side is usually too tight to be able to put your trailer or whatever.
Right.
This lets you slide the house over 2 feet, so you can actually have a usable side.
And then it gives you access to your backyard. The problem with, I
Right,
think,
which is
some
good.
cities, when they do their side yard setbacks, they allow for them to be tighter, and all of a sudden, the house is there, and they're wondering, how can I get this to my backyard, without ordering a crane and lifting it up over the house? So it's always, good to at least leave a 10-foot on
I think it's a good
any
change.
side, so you have at least free access back.
So
to the
Drew,
back.
as I read this chart, this is just helping. The 8 and 10 is assuming there's 2 sides. One can be 8, one can be 10 at the election of the owner.
Of the owner, yep.
Okay.
Unless you're the last owner on the street.
Unless you're the last home, then you could end up being 10 and 10. Which will, again, you hope that it starts in the middle, and if, again, a certain builder in his own subdivision will plan all that out anyway, just so he can get that. They will look into that.
He could be 8 and 8 too, couldn't he?
No, because you have to have at least 10 on one side.
Oh, so the one guy would have to have 10 and 10. So he'd
Yeah.
have to shrink his house.
You
2
pick the
feet.
side you want the 8 on, the other side has to be 10.
So if you don't like your neighbors.
In practicality,
10 and 10.
The only time that ever usually happens is if it's a perfectly flat road, which is not that often. I mean, if it has any slope at all, you put the garage on the high side.
And again, that's the minimum they could go through. There are folks that don't want to do that. I don't want my house that close to other people. Some of them will be more than 10, depending on the lot and the home that they choose, right? So, but this would be the max or the minimum, however you want to look at that they could get close to the property line.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions, concerns, comments, or I'll look for a motion?
This is Commissioner Mitchell. I move that we approve the amended portion of the city code, specifically Title 9-8B-5 with the area width and yard regulations. Does this go to city council?
Yes.
It does?
And send it to city council.
Yeah, this one's a change of city law, and the planning commission isn't burdened with that on any final decision. And so, yeah, this was a recommendation for a city law change.
It's Commissioner Anderson, I'll second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Individual voting, Bullock.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
I'm Hanson, I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. We'll send that to city council with our recommendation for approval. That is the end of the planning commission agenda this evening. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before this body at this time? Yeah. All right, I'll go ahead and look for a motion to close this meeting, and then we'll have about a 1 to 2 minute break, and then we'll open our meeting for the Land Use Authority.
Commissioner Anderson, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Commissioner Bullock, I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned, and we'll reconvene here in about 1 minute with the Washington City Land Authority meeting.
I understand. Drew, I was hoping you could refresh. We actually increased the open space there in the middle on a map that we sent in earlier this week. I don't know if she asked Melody to refresh it, but what was the question? Sorry, Corey. Councilman Anderson. I said, are you going to build your house on lot 1? On the villa, lot 1? Yeah. I don't know if I can do that right now. No, so just so for the record, what the plan is those are villa lots, and there's 3 of them, and they're going to plat them and then sell them, and then that developer will have to come in and go through the same process we're going here to show up. But the plan is to do like little villa houses is kind of how they're selling them. So it's.
What would classify as a villa house? Like ones Stookie Farms, like those little 600 square foot
They're
houses?
smaller houses, yeah.
Yeah,
But
okay.
they would be off some streets, internal streets that'll go through that process. But the goal is to sell those parcels off to other developers that will then improve those parcels, but they'll have to come back through as well. But we're.
You're talking about big lot, they're not big giant state lots.
Yeah.
No, there'll be quite a few homes in those areas. So they're just big parcel lots that will have a plat that they can then, because if you remember this land is owned by state trust lands with them having the development lease. So they don't have a patent on the land until we go and create these patents for these lands. So, and not to confuse anyone, but the parcel 2B is the one they'll probably plat first, mostly because they have some parade homes plans for 213 and 214 and 215 in 2025. So it's just a phasing thing with numbers. They're gonna build it all together. It's just a matter of, they might wanna plat those ones and build that section of road first and be done. Drew, can you find that update? I just wanna make sure on the record it's the right one. Yep, that's it.
I can screenplay this.
Okay. So it's right in the packet. I don't know, that must have been an older. Oh,
Is it just the villa lots that are gonna be sold off later?
yeah, well, they'll all be sold as single-family homes. They're large estate lots so if you wanna.
So like lot 202, that's a single family home
It's a
lot.
single-family home.
Oh yeah,
It's a
just the
large
villa
estate lot.
lots are the ones that they'll put the smaller homes in.
There's 3 villa lots and they'll have smaller homes in there. All the rest are large estate lots, just like the lots below in phase 1. They're actually bigger lots. So during the process of this phase 1, they had a lot of requests for larger lots. So with that process, that's what they're doing.
Big lots.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up make sure we had the right map looking at is that they decided to pull the villa lot back a little bit because the brown lines you see on there are actual faults. So we can't build structures on those. And they thought they would leave that more open space on that segment right through there. Because they are selling it off to
The hash brown lot?
the hash brown. So I wouldn't call it an active fault, but it's a notified fault, which is why you have all the red cliffs that go through there. And you can kind of see it splits along there. It's kind of how that fault goes across. So we had a study done for that. And that's where they identified the areas that they don't want to build structures. So we're on the final plats and that you'll see they'll have those lines. You can't build within those areas and moving forward. But on the villa lot, we pulled it back. It's kind of a drainage corridor as well.
That's it?
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to just zoom up. Yeah, yep, that's the correct one. So I just want to make record of that, so. That's the one that was tweaked a little bit to accommodate some of those items. Is there any other questions from the Land Use Authority members?
Not here, we good? Mr. Coates, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time. If anybody in the audience would like to speak to this particular item, please come forward and state your name. All right, it looks like somebody thought about it and changed their mind, so we are not going to have any public comment on this item. Go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll turn the time over back to commissioners for questions, comments, or a motion.
Yeah, make a motion.
Commissioner Anderson, I move that we approve the preliminary plat approval for Salente Village 1, Phase 2 subdivision located approximately Kalima Road and Altazano Road with the conditions and findings outlined by staff.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I second.
I've got a first and a second. Individual voting, Bullock.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. We will send that to City Council with our recommendation for approval. That is, I apologize. The motion passes and that item is subject to approval from the Planning Commission. Not subject to approval. It is approved by the Planning Commission,
Land Use Authority.
by the Land Use Authority. It is my third meeting. I apologize. I'm getting better. No, I'm not. Dang it. All right, anything else need to be brought before the Land Use Authority regular commission meeting tonight? I'll look for a motion to adjourn otherwise.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to adjourn the Land Use Authority.
Second.
All right, first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all again.